He would do anything to save this girl from a zombie. Hello all. This is Jacobson and this is a brief retelling of the 12th and 13th episodes of the 4th season of the zombie series The Walking Dead. You can see the previous episodes at the links in the video description.
In the middle of the night, Daryl and Beth find an abandoned car on the side of the road. They climb into the trunk and spend the night in it while numerous walkers pass by. The next morning, they search the car for supplies, and then leave. Later, Daryl hunts for food, and Beth makes a fire in the camp they set up. After an unsuccessful attempt to catch a squirrel, Daryl manages to kill a large snake. He brings her to the camp, where he and Beth cook and eat her. After finishing her meal, Beth tells Daryl she wants a drink. He gives her a bottle of water, but she tells him she wants a drink, explaining that Herschel did not allow it. When Daryl doesn't say anything, she angrily takes her knife and leaves. While Beth wanders through the woods, walkers appear, and she has to hide. She successfully tricks walkers by throwing a stone into the nearest thicket, distracting them. Daryl then appears and leads her back to the camp, which angers her. Beth indignantly tells Daryl that she can take care of herself, and pushes him away for good measure. However, they leave the camp together and stumble upon a golf course. A group of walkers appears from the woods, and Beth decides to go to a country club on the edge of the golf course, believing there is alcohol there. Going inside, they find 3 walkers suspended from the ceiling by their necks, and the bodies of people with shot heads are scattered on the floor. While Beth is looking for alcohol, Daryl starts collecting money scattered on the floor. Walkers from the golf course try to enter the room and force them to seek refuge in the depths of the club. As they make their way deeper into the building, Beth manages to find an unopened bottle of alcohol. However, a walker attacks her from the shadows, and she is forced to use a bottle as an improvised weapon. The bottle breaks, but she manages to stab the walker in the head. She sees Daryl watching her and sarcastically thanks him for his help. Daryl just reminds her that she said she could take care of herself. Beth notices the inscription "Welcome to Doc Trot" on the wall and sees even more bodies of people who, like the others, apparently committed mass suicide. Further in the building they find a shop. Daryl tries to plunder the cash register and starts taking everything that could have monetary value before the plague. Beth approaches and they both see the upper half of the female corpse. The corpse is deliberately mounted on mannequin legs, his shirt is unbuttoned, and a sign with the inscription "Rich Bitch" is pinned on his chest. Beth seems upset by the sight. She asks Daryl to help her clean it up. He first says it doesn't matter because the woman is dead. However, he then decides to throw a sheet over the corpse. Meanwhile, Beth finds a clean shirt and puts it on. While they continue their search, the grandfathers on the clock, which they passed earlier, begin to ring. This attracts the attention of all walkers nearby. Daryl and Beth try to escape, but they soon find themselves at a dead end. Daryl begins to deal with the walkers with his crossbow, until one of the walkers clung to him. Then he starts getting rid of them with a golf club and a knife until he gets to the last one. In a fit of anger, Daryl deliberately hits a walking man with a golf club without killing him, and then smashes his face. In the process, Beth's shirt is splattered with blood. She takes it off and they go to the bar. Beth starts looking for alcohol while Daryl continues packing. Beth finds a half-empty bottle of peach schnapps and asks Daryl if he's good. He says no, but she seems determined to drink it anyway. Not finding a clean glass, Beth begins to cry, and Daryl angrily approaches the place where she is sitting and breaks the bottle on the floor, saying that her first glass will be better. He then takes her to a dilapidated shack that he claims he found with Michonne. He goes into the house with Beth, takes out a box of moonshine from it and pours her a glass. Beth drinks moonshine, then offers to drink to Daryl, but he refuses, saying that someone needs to have their own mind. Beth persuades Daryl to play the game "I Never," during which Daryl gets drunk. Beth says she's never been to prison, implying that Daryl has been. He gets furious and starts urinating on one of the walls. He then forcefully takes Beth outside, where a walker was brought to the house to teach her how to use her crossbow. He shoots the walker in the chest, pinning him to a tree, and tries to get Beth to kill him with a crossbow. She refuses and instead stabs him in the head with her knife. Then they start arguing, during which Daryl yells at Beth for getting lost on the road and only wants to drink like a stupid student, and Beth demands that Daryl stop pretending that he doesn't care about anyone. Daryl then breaks down and says he feels directly responsible for Herschel's death. He tells her that he had a chance to attack the governor, but he didn't take it, and that if he had continued to search for the governor with Mi Jong, maybe then they could have saved Herschel's life. Beth hugs him while he continues to cry. Later in the evening, Daryl and Beth share stories about their families, during which Beth tells Daryl that he will eventually be the last one left alive after everything is over. Daryl says that before the apocalypse, he followed his brother Merle and did what he said. Beth offers, "We have to burn him to the ground," helping Daryl erase his entire past. Daryl smiles and tells her that they will need more alcohol. They pour moonshine all over the house and prepare to set it on fire. Daryl offers Beth matches, and she sets fire to the money that Daryl collected earlier and throws them into the house. The house starts to burn, and Beth and Daryl, watching it garenge, turn and leave. Bob, Sasha and Maggie are surrounded by walkers in a thick fog and fight them off. During the fight, one of the walkers almost bites Bob, which scares Sasha. After they fought off the walkers, Sasha helps Bob, and they both see that the walker did not bite Bob, but only tore his bandages. A relieved Sasha hugs Bob. In the present, Daryl teaches Beth how to track down and use a crossbow. Beth finds the tracks and correctly determines that they belong to a walker. Daryl notices that she's getting better at it. They approach a clearing where a walker is feasting on the corpse of a small animal. Beth tries to approach the walker to shoot him with Daryl's crossbow, but her leg unexpectedly falls into an animal trap. The walker notices her. She shoots a crossbow, but the bolt hits the walker's mouth, skipping the brain. However, the walker is quickly killed by Daryl. Sasha, Bob and Maggie agree that they need to find a more suitable place to camp, since the clearing they are in is covered with fog. Maggie takes a small compass out of her pocket and tries to use it, but is upset to learn that it is broken. Bob says they don't need it, referring to the fact that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, which means they can use it to determine which way to go. Daryl helps Beth walk through the woods until they find a cemetery with a large house towering over it. He then carries Beth on his back through the cemetery. Halfway there, Beth gets off and starts looking at a 19th century tombstone with the inscription "Beloved Father." Daryl also looks at him, then takes out some flowers from the ground and puts them on the tombstone. Beth takes Daryl's hand to hold it. Both are silent, but you can see how their hands are clenching. Maggie, Sasha and Bob find railroad tracks, as well as a sign advertising the Terminus community. Bob tells them about the program that he, along with Tyrese, Daryl and Michonne, heard on the radio while searching for medicines for the surviving prisoners. Maggie immediately demands that they go to the community, as this is a likely place where Glenn could have gone. Sasha disagrees, saying that perhaps there are no other signs that Glenn could see. Bob, however, agrees with Maggie, and Sasha is forced to agree with them. Daryl and Beth explore the funeral home in the cemetery. Beth immediately noticed how clean the inside was. Daryl guesses that someone lived in it. As they explore, they find many bodies dressed as for funerals, and a coffin. Beth says it's very beautiful, referring to the fact that whoever dressed them up wanted to bury them properly. She then turns to Daryl, asking if he thinks it's beautiful, to which he stares at her in silence for a few seconds, and then walks over to her to wrap his arm around her ankle. Maggie's group set up camp, setting up clippers and noise alarms to warn them of the approach of walkers. Bob asks Sasha where Maggie is, and she replies that she is collecting firewood. Bob asks Sasha if she wants to stop, to which she replies in the affirmative. When asked why, she answers that she wants to survive. She tells him that Glenn is most likely dead and that they need to stop in the first town they come across and settle there. Daryl and Beth search the kitchen of the house and find a large supply of food and drinks in the cupboards. Daryl notices that there is not a speck of dust on them, which means that someone put them there recently and that someone really lives in the house. They install clippers to warn if someone comes. At night, Beth sings and plays the piano in the house, and Daryl watches her and secretly eavesdrops on her. When she discovers him, Daryl goes and lies down in the coffin they found, saying it was the most comfortable bed he slept in, and then asks her to play some more. Sasha wakes up and finds a note in the ground left by Maggie, who secretly left in the middle of the night. Bob insists that they follow her, and that if they follow the railroad tracks, he will catch up with Maggie. As Maggie walks along the railroad tracks, she comes across another terminus sign. A walker is approaching her. She lets him get close to her and easily kills him. Then she cuts open the insides of the walker. Sasha asks why Bob smiles all the time after prison, and asks if he even knows what he is smiling at. Bob replies that he is not alone, referring to the fact that he was alone after his first 2 groups were destroyed, and that he finally broke this streak. They then find the walker that Maggie killed, and find in the walker's blood a message left for Glenn, in which she asks him to go to Terminus. Daryl carries Beth to the kitchen, where there is food on the table, and they start eating. They stop when he hears a noise outside. Daryl asks Beth to step aside when he goes to look. Opening the front door, he discovers a one-eyed dog on the porch. He tries to pet her, but the dog runs away in fear. Beth asks if the dog will enter the house, to which Daryl is upset that she did not stay away. Beth says it's just a dog, and seems upset that she won't come in, to which Daryl replies that maybe she'll come back later. In the middle of Bob's night there will be the sound of walkers. Sasha has already woken up and calmly says that he has been making noise for about an hour, which leads Bob to think that he is hooked on something. Sasha offers Bob a break, but he can't. Instead, he asks her why she thinks Tyrese is dead, saying that if Tyrese was alive, he would have gone to Terminus, and that she knows it. Beth writes a thank you note to the person staying at the house for the food she and Daryl ate. Daryl suggests that she not leave her, but wait until the owner returns and tries to live with them. Beth asks that she convinced Daryl that there are still good people in the world, but he doesn't answer. They hear a dog barking, and then it starts screaming in pain. Daryl goes to the door and is immediately attacked by a horde of walkers hiding behind the door. He keeps the door closed and Beth gives him her crossbow, then they both try to escape. Daryl convinces Beta to go through the window while he distracts walkers. After leading them through the house, bending them into a corner, Daryl manages to escape to the cemetery, where he destroys 2 more walkers, finds Beth's discarded bag lying on the floor, and, to his alarm, sees a black car with a white cross driving away, assuming that it was stolen. Daryl tries his best to run after the car, but eventually loses it at the intersection. Sasha and Bob find another message for Glenn, written by Maggie in the blood of walkers. Bob claims that Maggie is really close to the train tracks and that if they accelerate, they will be able to catch up with her. Daryl is still running in the direction the car left, but he's already starting to get tired. Finally, after several hours of alternating running and walking, he falls at the intersection of railway tracks and an asphalt road, shown extremely saddened and exhausted. Bob and Sasha stumble upon an empty town near the railroad tracks, and Sasha tries to convince Bob that they should set up camp in it. Bob refuses, wanting to find Maggie, and Sasha tries to convince him to stop following her, saying that Maggie didn't want them to go with her. Bob replies that he doesn't care and that he's going to find her and help her. Unable to convince Sasha to go with him, he kisses her goodbye and they break up. Sasha enters the old building and searches it from the inside. Having come to the conclusion that everything is clean, she begins to cry, but quickly pulls herself together. Then she goes to the window and is shocked to see Maggie lying among the corpses on the ground. Accidentally, the window through which she is looking falls, breaks on the ground and scares Maggie. This also leads to the appearance of several walkers, and Sasha quickly goes to Maggie's aid. After they deal with the walkers, Maggie asks Sasha where Bob is, and Sasha replies that he is looking for Maggie. Maggie then confronts Sasha and reveals that she heard Sasha tell Bob that Glenn is most likely dead and says she is wrong. Maggie asks Sasha to help her get to Terminus, to which Sasha agrees. Then they leave to catch up with Bob. Daryl is surrounded by 6 men, well armed with machine guns and a bow. Before they can say anything, he jumps up and hits one of them, aiming a crossbow at his head. This man, the one Rick almost killed when he broke into the house he claimed with Carl and Michonne. The men point their guns at Daryl. One of them demands to take his leather vest, but the man Daryl knocked down tells them not to shoot. He then starts talking to Daryl, saying that he admires Daryl's crossbow and would like to have one of the same. He then tells Daryl that if Daryl shoots him, the rest of his group will kill Daryl, telling him it would be suicide, and asks why he would hurt himself if he could hurt other people. He then introduces himself to Joe. Daryl slowly lowers the crossbow and introduces himself to the man. Joe's group lowers the weapon. Maggie and Sasha catch up with Bob and, united, continue their journey to Terminus. Elsewhere, Glenn finds the Terminus sign and looks at it in awe.